Tejarah Talks.
Welcome to Tejarah Talks, the podcast that brings you conversations and discussions with innovative and inspirational members of the Omani business and investment community. I'm Adham Seyyid, founder of the firm for business and economic consulting. And in this episode, we'll be taking a deep dive into Oman's manufacturing sector. Joining me today, Mr. Harssha Shetty, CEO of Jindal Seyyid, and Mr. Abdulrahman Khaifi, GM Corporate of SPMP. Gentlemen, welcome to the podcast.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Mr. Shetty, I'd like to start with you and ask, why manufacturing and what is exciting about manufacturing?
Well, if we look at the history of capitalism in the past 300 years, wealth has never been created almost without manufacturing. In 1700s to 1800s, UK, Europe, Japan, the United States amounted to just 27% of the total industrialized world. In 1900, they are at 90%. So manufacturing has been the bedrock of wealth creation and transitioning from primary sectors to today's blend of manufacturing and services. So that's the first most important driver. Secondly, manufacturing actually has the highest multiplier effect in an economy. Every dollar invested in manufacturing gives back more to the economy in terms of jobs in the services sector, higher productivity in even in agriculture. You would be very surprised that the most productive farms are powered by machinery, or chemicals, fertilizers, which are a product of manufacturing.
Absolutely.
And even the most high-growing service firms rely heavily on top of the technology, computers, automation systems. So manufacturing actually is the bedrock
Of all of that. I like the mention of jobs there, Mr.
Yes.
Shetty, because when you need jobs or create jobs, you want talent.
Yeah, right.
Abdulrahman, you, in your industry, in your field, in your company, you need specialized talent.
Yeah.
Is this talent available or developed, or do you have to train them from scratch?
I think they're available, and I'm very strong on this point, because I was a long time back, maybe many years, I was not sure, because every time we hear that, the talents are not available. Just to give you an example, when we started the business in 2000, we started recruiting in 2016 earlier. We had different people come from different parts of the world, and they say, Oman, Suhar, it's very difficult to get peoples on antimony, on process, and so on, engineering especially.
What is antimony, by the way?
Antimony, it's a good question. Antimony, it's a product that's important and strategic to all in our daily life. For example, you will need it in telephones, you will need it in wire cables, you're going to need them in cars, in airplanes.
So it's an input basically in a lot of industries.
Exactly. Yeah, because what it does, it's reduce, it's a fire retardant, so it's reduce the temperature. And it's very strategic metals. And currently in the world, there is a few only players in the world. And Suhar, Oman tried to be part of that game.
How is Oman positioned to be in that position for SPMP to establish itself here?
I think it wasn't a challenge. It wasn't easy, especially if if you look in the market and you just have certain players in the market who produce almost, if not 100%, 90%. And Oman tries just to be at the 10, 15%. Because in a strategic metal that goes in every element in our daily life, starting from the day you wake up morning, things that you do, safety of people. Because not having antimony in any of gadgets, it will lead to unsafe matters.
But back to the talent point, and this is perhaps as well for you, Mr. Shetty.
Yeah.
Where do you find talent in Oman today? Are universities or specialized institutions qualifying young Omanis to take in the jobs? Manufacturing in Oman is estimated to employ about 220,000 plus people, of which Omanis are about 35,000 or so, according to latest statistics. Where do you find those people, and what is required of them?
We develop talent, and I believe if the enterprise in Oman has to align to 2040 vision, the enterprise has to take ownership and the onus of developing the talent who is coming out of the universities in Oman. And I believe that's the most sustainable way because most of the industries have a very specific requirement. It's not necessary that you get it. Like, for example, we are a steel company and there's no other primary steel producer. So the onus is on us to develop the talent.
Absolutely.
I think for us, was it a bit differently?
Right.
I think the talents are available. The government spends lots of money on developing Omanis, send them outside countries to get the experience, the knowledge. Adding to that, the altitude. I think Omanis, maybe from the experience that we had, the altitude of Omanis, young Omanis, it's give you a joy working with them and at the same time to give them the chances. For us, we didn't, the way we develop it is just we give them the chance and they grow by themselves. We started with almost zero Omani on technical side. Till now we do have the plant manager is an Omani. Okay. The senior metallurgical is Omani. The supply chain is an Omani. Okay. So in each level, we look at it. We try just only to give the chance. The talent are there. You don't have even to have to look. You just add an advert. In our first advertisement was on newspaper and on our website. We received around 5,000
applications.
Okay,
that's very exciting.
From there, and we was looking only because it's new industry and don't take the risk. We need time. They say we just need give us the opportunity. So we took four
out of the 5,000
from out of the 5,000. One of them right now have been recruited by Saudi. She is in Saudi. Okay, she started with us as a fresh graduate, and we still have the 3 with us.
That's fantastic, and I'm assuming this will grow, inshallah.
Inshallah.
So the job opportunities are there in your industry specifically, but manufacturing widely. But there's another angle when we look at manufacturing, and many countries have developed manufacturing for the purpose of import substitution.
Yeah.
Mr. Shetty, do you agree with that? Is that the right way?
Well, I feel the nation and the enterprise should focus on export competitiveness and export promotion. Once we focus on this, import substitution happens automatically. Because if you are competitive in the fierce global markets, very high quality conscious global markets, you are actually in a better position to substitute imports. And typically I would feel that you reach for the sky and you accomplish a lot more. Right. So I think export competitiveness and promotion should be the focus.
Are you in a competitive position today as Jindal, Seyyid?
Yes. In fact, we are exporting across the globe, right from North America, Europe, and we are extremely proud that our quality is very well accepted globally. So Asia Pacific, Southeast Asia, Europe and North America. And we have exported annual exports is in excess of $1.2 billion. And it is expected to go in excess of $1.5 billion. So this is all possible because of the competitive local business support we are receiving from the Oman government. In fact, that's one of the primary reasons we find Oman as the most preferred destinations for our future expansions.
And I understand you're very close to a port as well, the port of Sahar.
Yes, absolutely.
How does that make your business model more viable and more competitive?
Well, being beside the port is definitely helping us in terms of reduced inland freight costs. It also helps us reduce inventory because lesser the distance from the port, the inventory levels can be kept lower than the industry average. And most importantly, the number of external variables reduces when you are just beside the port.
Absolutely.
So that's one of the biggest advantages here, yes.
That is great. Abdulrahman, you're in the free zone in Sahar.
Yeah.
And obviously export business is big for you. What kind of challenges are you seeing there in reaching international markets?
I think reaching the international market, I think there's a challenge currently. I think things are moving smooth, especially that's with moving the country to digital. I think now we do most of our, we do part of paperwork, but most of it goes through Bayan system and so on. So you're starting your CV materials.
Bayan system is the customs clearance system.
Yeah, clearance system. Yeah. So once you do all apply, you apply all your documents and things are moving so smoothly. So I think there's still area for improvements, but I believe we see lots of improvement from 2016 to today. There's a lot of improvements. You're starting not need more people on ground.
I'd like to move the conversation to thinking more about what is happening in Oman today. We've heard that manufacturing is exciting, it's interesting, it's export driven. Where are we today, Mr. Shetty, in Oman when we think about manufacturing?
Well, I think currently the manufacturing is contributing to around 9.5% of Oman's GDP. And it's not far behind, actually. If you look at India, for example, it's around 15%. US is around 24%. So the encouraging thing is there are some growth focus areas for Oman which can catapult Oman to more than double digit, maybe around 15% very soon, especially the free zones which are being set up. It's actually going to be the launch pad in this direction. And the policies for new enterprises being set up, the tax SOPs, I think that's going to be a shot in the arm. And most importantly, the very proactive government policy making and the accessibility for sharing ideas, that is something which is extremely enabling for new investors.
With policymakers or
yes.
With the business environment itself?
With the business environment as well as the policymakers. They are very eager to understand how they can be more industry friendly to enable higher in-country value addition, GDP, employment. And hence we are very proud to invest in Oman. We have 47% Omani employees who are actually leading across all key roles also. And so I think the Omani manufacturing, there are certain priority areas which have been identified by the government. And one of the priority areas is green hydrogen. The tenders are going to be released soon.
Yes, correct.
And that can be a game changer in transforming Oman.
Inshallah.
I have a few more ideas. Maybe later
I think we want to talk more about that
I'm sure.
as well. But Abdulrahman, Mr. Shetty had mentioned the developments in Oman in manufacturing are significant and well taken note of. And we're well aware that the vision focuses on it. Are we too concentrated in certain type of industries at the moment in terms of manufacturing?
I believe yes. And I believe there's lots of investors who would like to come and invest, maybe outside of that, especially on the new technology and new manufacturers like antimony and other materials. I think those are significant to look at it. It's just only to build and manufacture that. For today, I think we need to starting build manufacturers looking on what is the global focus on, like battery and so on. On those strategic material, I think Oman can play in a big role.
So you said Oman is ready. How are we well positioned to take advantage of that?
Stability, it's one of the key. Just maybe before these projects comes to Oman, it was in a neighbor country. Everything was been settled, agreement, everything. But they moved to Oman because of stability. The investment that the Sohar port, okay, and also, as I said, the Omani nature. Okay, I think we ready. It's just only we need to put things together.
I'd like to talk about something that you've mentioned, Mr. Shetty, regarding ICV and contribution.
Yeah.
Because I understand at Jindal there is a significant amount of work happening there. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what's going on?
Yes, in fact, Jindal Shadid is happy to have invested over 1.5 billion US dollars. In fact, out of that 1.3 is already invested, and another $250 million are currently under project execution. And in the past 5 years, we have added $3.5 billion of in-country value addition.
Why Duqm and not expand in Sohar, or is it something special about Duqm for you?
Yes, in fact, there are a lot of factors which Duqm Free Zone is making it competitive there, and also the ecosystem which is being created for green hydrogen. So we will be the world's, the announcement is going to happen soon, but all I can say is the world's largest green steel facility is going to be Oman.
Inshallah.
And the fastest to market green steel, which will be going into the cars in Europe, will be from Oman.
That's very exciting news. So you've mentioned these large investments. How are they cascading into the local economy?
Well, one of course is creating jobs, increasing the demand for the services, especially logistics, R&D, and product testing. So there are an array of services which and a lot of labor we employ indirectly also to through logistics, and so these other services which you procure. So that's the multiplier effect and the in-country value addition which comes through such investments. Most importantly, what we believe is, I can connect this to the SMEs which have a potential to add more in-country value addition if they can buy our steel and add value within Oman. Because you have a abundance of steel availability in the domestic now. They do not need to import. Yeah. So I think that is one thing which can be a big plus with such large, like for example, Oman doesn't have iron, but it's the third largest producer of steel in the GCC. So when you have the SMEs also consuming the steel, actually what goes out of Oman would be finished products, which can be directly used by the consumers.
Right.
So,
what kind of opportunities, Harssha, are we looking at within this use of local output?
SMEs?
Yes. What kind of opportunities?
Yeah. Like for example, we would be investing in a large steel facility in Duqm. Even if 20% of that steel can be utilized within Duqm or within Oman, it can add $1 billion plus in-country value addition. Only the SMEs. I'm talking about only 20% of steel being used inside. Because what happens is when these SMEs come in, when the value addition happens internally further, the value per ton, the value added per ton, the manufacturing value added actually increases. So that's, I think, one of the big moves. And most importantly, these SMEs are mostly the first job for a lot of youth.
Yes.
And that is something, and they are the biggest gainers. And the skill sets, the bandwidth of the skills required for an SME is wider from the lower end of the pyramid to the higher compared to just large organizations. So that's the second biggest advantage for the economy. Third, they are the crucible for entrepreneurs, for innovation. Actually, most of the entrepreneurs start from an SME. So a very booming SME ecosystem is actually good for the economy to multiply wealth creation. It's like a snowballing effect.
Absolutely, but supported by larger organizations.
Yes, supported by large
the
organizations.
ecosystem.
And that's the advantage. Like Jindal, Seyyid, the third largest steel maker here without iron. That's a big opportunity for SMEs in the steel segment.
In the steel segment.
Can I add something?
Yes,
I mean,
Abdulrahman.
whenever I hear a gap, it's there. But I'm talking about from experience and being in the floor. Whether SMEs, whether technical, I wish people could see what we see. Oman is, once you give them the opportunity, you just forget about the gap.
So in terms of skills, talent, and capabilities.
Yeah. If Oman could, if we take a history, if Oman could have an empire, and most of it's in trade, how come now with the young Omanis who've been, the government been spent so much, invest on schools, electricity, teachers. How come? It's just only the matter of open the door for them. Once the door has been opened, you cannot believe what can be happen.
And you believe manufacturing is one of those opportunities that could present itself. Great. So I'd like to turn our attention now to the disruptions in your industries, in manufacturing. Harssha, where do you see the biggest disruptions coming from?
The future, the industry is going to be green. And for us, the color of steel is changing from gray to green. If we have to contain the increase in the global temperatures to less than 1.5 degrees Celsius, around 45% of the industrial emissions has to be reduced by 2040. And I'm extremely excited to share with you one very interesting fact. In steel industry, the global average carbon emissions per ton of steel is 1.82 tons. Europe is around 1.32 tons. North America is slightly low, around 1.25 tons of carbon per ton of steel. Jindal Seyyid is at 1.05 tons. And this is audited by third parties. So we are already at 45% lower, but we are not complacent. Our target is to produce green steel in the new investment coming, and that would be using green hydrogen and lowest carbon footprint in the world. And there is a huge market which will open up for Oman with these investments. So what I feel is the future. This is going to be the largest, biggest disruption. There would be carbon tax which will be coming into Europe. So that is going to help such investments. And so that is also going to be accelerating the disruption. And the geopolitical conflicts which has endangered or threatened the fossil fuels as a sustainable energy for the future actually has helped Oman to focus in the sense of, because Oman is one of the top 3 destinations globally for solar intensity, and hence investments into solar and wind power. So that is going to be one of the big transformation for Oman in the coming decade.
This is a question for both of you. Has the pandemic changed the way you do business?
Well, I can say one thing for sure, that globally a few technologies, at least 4 to 5 technologies, have been accelerated in its application post-COVID. The first and the foremost is augmented reality. So, like for example, Boeing has made a digital twin of its one of its factories, and using augmented reality, they are able to the whole controls happens through the digital twin. And BMW uses augmented reality for maintenance, remote maintenance. And we have deployed in Jindal Shadid artificial intelligence in the heart of the whole steel making process. That's in our EAF. So it replaces a manual intervention in terms of deciding the right optimization of carbon materials, power consumption, and oxygen. And so this is taken over by artificial intelligence, which is a machine learning process. So there is something called actually, it's on an empirical basis. It continuously optimizes. So it's going to significantly improve the production output through this artificial intelligence. So world over, I think a lot of companies have realized that digitalization is actually it's the investments in digitalizations have made more sense after COVID in terms of the payback period and the attractiveness of the investment. So I think that is one major change.
Abdulrahman, those investments are heavy.
Yeah.
And changing a process is going to be an expensive thing. Is it staying ahead of the curve or making tweaks as you go ahead with these disruptions?
I think maybe we were lucky. Though we are new in the market and the process it's new for everyone, and we had to delay the project. And as you say, the spending on this project wasn't easy, and the timeline of it. But for being ahead of the game in the technology, it helped us. We did not been impacted so badly on the pandemic because the technology was there. Okay, because you once you put the material, you just watch it. So that's helped us. Maybe the way that we do the way we interact, it changed.
Yes.
But we didn't. And on that, if I could add, I think one of the important thing, or learn, and it's just any manufacturer, and I see they need to have a research department, because what makes you ahead of the game, having a research within the plan
to make sure that you're well aware of the development.
Because every day you get up morning, you have a competitors who on the race, say whether they had a few or they just close to reach you. Therefore, you need to be aware about what is happening in the market, what is new technology, and all that are very important. Having a research, and that's not only even in the plants, but even in the governments.
Right. So collaborations with entities that add value.
And having a research department within the plant, I think that it's helped you to predict future.
Absolutely. Which brings me to a question, again, and this is for the both of you. Logistics have become a very challenging thing.
Yep.
Have you brought your supply chains closer to home where possible? Or are you still dependent on the existing supply chains before the pandemic? Mr. Shetty?
Yeah, in our case, we are backward integrating within our own value chain in our own factory. So we are putting up a pellet plant, which I said is underway.
Yes.
And also submerged arc furnace. So that helps us backward integrate and bring our supply chain closer. So that actually is increased the in-country value addition for Oman.
Abdulrahman, how about yourself? Are you able to adjust that?
We don't have a choice right now, but currently we didn't, because we for I think last year and the year before we just starting entering the market. So there was lots of pressure on the project to close it, because the spending on it was very heavily. But it's in our mind as management just to bring it closer,
right?
Where we could add value.
Absolutely.
But I can add one more thing, is that our procurement policies is such that the first preference should be given for local buying. That's a part of our policy. So
Right.
most of the inputs what we buy, the first scan we do is in the local, and we have been increasing the local buying year on year. It's growing. The local buying is growing by over 15 to 20% on a
Annually.
CAGR basis. So
I think for us, it's not only buying; it's we're looking on long relationship. I mean, people can buy, or you could support them for a year. But what after 1 year? Because that gentleman comes in, he want to grow, he want to employ people.
Correct.
Okay, you cannot say after 1 year or 2 years or 5 years, thank you very much, they cannot pay you. I think for us, we're very keen to look on whatever we bring back to the local. I think we would like it to stay for long.
And I think that's a key point with manufacturing, these long-term relationships for
absolutely.
the off-takers. Right. So from disruptions, I would like to turn our attention to the green transition, which Harssha, you already mentioned some of its sort of indicators. So some of the things that are very key right now, Oman having set its net zero targets to 2050. How is that going to change your business model? You've mentioned some of those initiatives. Can you tell us a little bit more?
yeah, so as I mentioned, green hydrogen is one of the priority sectors by the government of Oman, and they have taken concrete steps in this direction. The first tenders for green hydrogen integrated production is going to be out in a week or so, and so I think so. Jindal Shadid is investing in, as I mentioned, the world's largest green steel facility. What I feel can help Oman more is that the policy of green hydrogen integrated complex should prefer those companies who can add value for green hydrogen within Oman rather than exporting green hydrogen out into the world, because this is the Oman's national resource. So those companies who are investing also into the further value addition, like for example, we are investing in steel. So I think if they can be a part of this integrated production of green hydrogen, I think that's going to add a lot of value for Oman.
Absolutely. I think that integration and value added within country is within the realms of the strategy.
Absolutely.
As well. When we think of green transitions, we're thinking of ESG, so environment, social, and governance as well. What kind of thoughts do you have, Harssha, on these? And what is Jindal, for example, doing in Oman today with respect to these elements?
Well, ESG is growing in importance for, globally, and it's one of the priority areas at the board levels. In fact, rather, I would say the topmost priority. And at Jindal Shadid, as I mentioned to you, that we are already the most lowest carbon footprint steel, and we are accelerating our efforts in other aspects of environmental compliances and being the best in class. In terms of the social impact, what we are doing, we are working with the local communities, focused training to ensure we employ more and more talent from the local community. And our CSR policy, in fact, is touching a lot of lives from different cross-section of the community. And we are going to very soon come up with a focused CSR policy to align with the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. So that is next on the cards.
Excellent.
So
that's exciting when you mention SDGs, because I know you've done a bit of certification for your emissions and the targets as well, and there are clear connections to which ones.
Yes, I believe finally every corporate citizen, every enterprise has to partner the government on the SDG priorities of the nation. And that is best possible through a ESG policy which is aligned with the government's Vision 2040 has already aligned itself with the SDG on the various aspects.
Okay.
So when we start aligning to Vision 2040 through our ESG priorities, I think that's the best combination for the country.
Right. Abdulrahman, that's a perspective that is, I'm sure, relatively new in your industry or for SPMP because of its, it's maturing in the process. But what would be the ESG priorities there?
SPMP exists because of ESG.
In what sense?
In sense of environment, for example. There's in the market, you have a certain competitors who are already in the market, and they've been there for the last 50, 60 years. Okay, so how are you going to differentiate between you and the product? SPMP exists because we want to be an environment friendly, and that's why we're starting having our sales most goes to Europe, America, Japan, and part of Asia. Just because of that. So it's adding value.
Do you get certified to be able to access those markets? So you have to be green certified, so to speak?
Currently, we work with the partners in those countries,
right,
who already been certified. So
right,
they're in a certain quality that's required, okay, in terms of lead and other materials. So we are at that level of quality,
where you're able to access those. So let me ask another question here. When we talk about green transitions and greening the economy and decarbonizing it, circular economy comes out as well. Antimony goes into many products, as you've mentioned. Is there a potential for recycling, reclaiming some of those used in certain products?
Yeah.
What kind of potential we're looking at?
Because as it goes in every elements in our daily life, so batteries, plastics, electronics, dashboards, and so on. So all of that, if we starting having recycling, I think it's in our next level or to move to that direction.
And can get into sort of a more circular kind of, but obviously has to be commercially viable as well. Mr. Shetty, is the steel and iron that you produce in any way recyclable as it ages? Is that something sensible to think about?
In fact, yes. In fact, steel is 100% recyclable, and you would be very happy to know that 100% of the steel which is recovered at end of the life is recycled within Oman.
Okay.
Yes. In fact, steel and aluminium, both are 100% are recycled.
Where would that happen in Oman? Again, at Jindal, for example, the recycling?
It happens. There are various... we are a primary steel producer, and we use just 2% scrap only for cooling the bath. But otherwise, there are other players here who actually buys 100% of the scrap which is generated within Oman. So that's one good thing about steel, that it's inherently...
Does that in any way come back to you at a later point, sort of recycled steel, or you prefer not to use that and just use the raw ore?
Yeah, we are not averse to it, but we use it maybe 2 to 3% just to...
For the cooling, as you've mentioned.
Cooling of the bath.
Mentioned. So in many ways, manufacturing has to keep up with the times and has to have very clear plans, especially in terms of emissions, which is clearly what your companies are doing. But in a way to transit out of this whole conversation, I'd like to pick your thoughts about manufacturing in Oman and what the future may hold. Abdulrahman, what are your final thoughts in today's conversation?
It's not only today's conversation, but what is happening around us with the change that's taken place in terms of policies, government directions. Having given this talk, I think this talk, it's one of, the new thing that's the direction that we are heading. So I'm really looking forward for the future, and I believe with all this initiative, they will pay back at the end. And I think we're in the right direction. Manufacture, I think, where you learn leadership, where you learn the value of of your day where you could see the future. That is, if I could describe what plants gives you. You go there, you're looking on safety, you're looking on environment in every day, in toolbox meetings, and you need to be on floors, whether you're an CEO or whether you need to be on the floor every day. If not every day, in a week, you have your own schedule. You need to meet people. You learn how to be humble, and it teaches you how to be patient. And at the same time, at night you get up at night and say, what my competitors are doing. So all of that, if you have a very good management team and a good skilled team, I think it's really a different world.
Sounds very exciting, except for the part where you stay up night. That I don't like. Harssha, how about yourself? Final thoughts on manufacturing, and where do you see manufacturing going?
The Vision 2040 has clearly identified manufacturing as one of the 3 pillars for economic development. And more importantly, they have identified diversification into non-oil based manufacturing as the key lever. And so this is very much in the right direction. So we are at 2022, and we still have 18 good years, and the policies on the free zones, the policies on the various SOPs are in the right direction. And I'm very excited that the green hydrogen policy is in place, and probably a wheeling policy for renewable energy can help this, can accelerate this. And Jindal Shadid is very excited about this vision, because we are steel, and we, I think, can contribute in a huge way to diversifying away from the oil-based economy. And very soon, in November, we are coming up with the announcement, which will be very exciting for Oman. Inshallah. And it can be a flag bearer of Oman's ambitions on diversification.
Inshallah.
Just maybe I want to add something.
Please do.
In 2009, I get the opportunity to work with Sahara Aluminium at their very early stages. Maybe I just came from Australia, say, driving every day 12 kilos from Port Roundabout to Sahara Aluminium. It's empty space. Just you have Sahara Aluminium at the beginning.
Yes.
You have the pizza, the Volvo, and that's all. And then you have every day to drive. Now in 2022, you do not feel the 12 kilos, because lots of manufacturers, whether there's a pipe, oil, aluminium wheels. So there is an expansion. And even the free zone was not exist at that time. So I think the futures are bright, and it's in the right direction with all this initiative that's been taken.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us here. Mr. Harssha Shetty, CEO of Jindal Seyyid, Mr. Abdulrahman Al-Khaifi, GM Corporate of SPMP. Thank you very much for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcasts, please share it with others or post it on social media. That's all for this episode. See you next time, inshallah.
Tejarah Talks.